Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today in this very exciting session. I'm personally excited for it. I know we're gonna all learn a lot from our expertise today. My name is Rami Alloush. I am the Upstream Data Product Owner at S&P Global, joined today by Alex Dixon, the Technical Advisor at Enverus, and Niven Shumaker, the Digital Innovation Advisor and Principal Data Scientist at SLB. Before jumping in, I would love for them to introduce themselves in a little bit depth. So, Alex, if you want to start, please.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Alex Dixon. Like was introduced, technical advisor. I'm out of Houston. I my position is playing with our data all day. I feel like I do it every day, all day. I show it to clients. I get a lot of questions on use cases, and also working with our generative AI, right? Which is a big product of ours. But been in the industry for a while, and everything from drilling. I'm a geologist by background, and completions as well. So
Perfect. Thank you. Niven.
Cool. Yep. I'm Niven Shumaker, and I'm currently at SLB. I've been here for the past 5 years, and around COVID, SLB started a new digital business line, if you will, called Innovation Factory. And it's about applying kind of early mature technology. So not particularly completely inventing new things, but things that are in the adjacent possible. Applying those to either meet like workflow gaps or software gaps or digital gaps. And all of those are client driven and typically machine learning or AI related. And I'm on the headquarter team. So, I mean, I work projects from Western Shelf, Australia, Indonesia, Egypt, Kuwait. I'm here in Houston, so obviously the Permian. So I see AI in a little bit of every domain, a little bit of every geography.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. Thank you for the introduction. So before jumping into like the more in-depth questions, like why our understanding of the Permian right now. So the Permian, as far as I understand, has actually moved beyond what we call experimental AI to we are actually in a real adoption. Like there is real operational deployment. We see multiple major operators, they have achieved like more than 20% cost reduction, up to even 15% completion cost reduction using AI driven and real time optimization. That's only in 2025. So we see this phase, I might say, with the industry has moved. We are not just trying here and there. There is real value and real cost savings happening in the industry. But a lot of the times people get confused, like AI is not new, right? And we have had AI for a long time. What's going on? Is this new or is this new? So from both of you, I would love really your insights into the difference between traditional AL like AI and ML that we and the normal workflows that we know and what's happening now. Are these values, most of them, still with the traditional AI and machine learning models? This is where the real value is, or these new like GPTs and generative AI in general is what's actually driving these? What's your take on that? Maybe you start with you, Alex, please.
yeah, I think both are very important as like the predictive AI, right? The algorithms, the machine learning has been around for a while, right? Using those algorithms to basically, get answers, right? With historic data. So, for an example, like type curve generation, right? Things in that nature. So you can look at historic production and fit a curve to that. And that's a bit of that predictive AI side.
Yes.
So I think there's always going to be value in that. I think the generative AI side, especially in the Permian, has taken it, things to the next level, right? So it's making those connections to things. It's generating, just as the name suggests, right? And I think being used interchangeably is important. I think, generative AI, of course, is coming into every single, I would say, piece of our lives, whether it's professional or personal, right? And it's a U multiplier. It's making things more efficient. And then on a grander scale, the strategies of these operators or service companies, it's really yielding great results. So I think, obviously the usage has gone up for generative AI in the past few years. And I think it's only going to take off from there. I think most operators, service companies are realizing the value, right, of the generative AI to make things more efficient, cost savings, you name it, right? So that's kind of my view on it. Yeah.
Okay. Before going like here to you, Niven, like I wanna like maybe be like the devil's advocate here. A lot of research, like a lot of people is still claiming, you know what, the simpler machine learning models still they are less complex, right? They more explainable because this nature of black box. So this gives a lot of challenges. So there is this argument that, you know what, this fuzz is not really impacting the industry. The industry still relies on our, like, let's say traditional between quotes, traditional ML models. They are less complex. They are much more mature and reliable now. What's your take on this argument?
I mean, the thing is, AI is kind of poorly defined, right? I mean, if you have, I mean, a lot of ML models are just lots of simple regressions, right? So, but I mean, I think automating simple regressions that allows people to work in a new way could be considered AI because it's behaviorally changing how people work with the technology. So it's not really saying anything different than what you said. It could be simple, but if it's automated and connected and allows people to do new things, it could very well be grouped as, digital oil field, if you will.
When you say like I wanna before I was jumping to the digital twin actually, but just staying there for one brief moment. The final, I wouldn't say the final verdict. Do you encourage, that's the specific question, do you encourage more take into should we get distracted with the generative work if we invest more in the more traditional sense? Where do you see the potential more? This is what I want to get to from what you are seeing with practical innovation application in the field.
I mean, for me, the generative work, see, I just like, so there's large language models that are generative. There's also domain models that are generative too. So consider like a seismic foundation model is going to be a type of image transformer, right? But like it's generative because it's pre-trained on a lot of different data sets. Or if it's like a well log foundation model, pre-trained on a lot of data. And so I think to answer your question, like the generative AI in that case has embedded knowledge that you wouldn't have otherwise seen with just regressing your data. So I think that's kind of the new type of generative AI application.
I love this take. Okay, so we still building on the foundations, but utilizing these new transformer and the new architectures to basically extrapolate on the core fundamentals. That's beautiful. Very good. You hinted at the digital twin integration. This is where I want to jump next, like dive deep. We have reports of like equipment downtime reduction up to 20%, maintenance cost decreases of up to 25%. All these very beautiful numbers. So this is very encouraging for people to jump. Yeah, let's have this digital twin thing. It seems to be really saving money. From like continue with you, Niven, and then see Alex input on that. What are practical steps like for a specific company who would love to really incorporate this digital twin strategy? Is there any practical steps you think we should start with to get the benefits of having a reliable digital twin?
Yeah, I mean, all this has to be about something, right? So, like a very common application would be like ESP set point, right? And so, like, what you need to do that is some degree of scale. So you're at least running it on, several dozen wells in a connected system, where you have the automatic, the data feed, the safety checks, and then the set point modification, which I guess is the digital twin in that case. And the digital twin itself may be quite simple, like adjust ESP set point, and it's not really very big. It might be a small increment, but it's more of the connected system that makes it valuable in the digital oil field. But it has to be part of a greater, I guess, IT, edge device connectivity, SCADA system, human machine interface, cloud system than just a point solution.
I see. Interesting. Alex, do you have a take on the digital twins in general?
Yeah, I think that being in a company that has a lot of data, right? We all the other operators, all the OFS companies, especially in the Permian, have their own proprietary data, right? It's things we'll never know, right? Things like, when, in completions, when did things screen out, right? Meter data, maybe with some pipelines or interconnects, things like that. And so, coming from some of these companies in my past, there's a lot of data. It's siloed. It's all, in one spot, sitting in a server database or whatnot. That's the place to start, right? Like being able to connect the data, and I think, and perhaps this will be talked about later, like asking the right questions too, right? Like, I have something I need answered, right? And I think the first step is of course not just the question, but having all the data in one spot. And I think that's something also that data companies, analytic companies, SaaS companies, programs, they're starting to want to blend the proprietary data with what they have, right? And so that creates those connections that I think can be really impactful and valuable to an organization or company as well. So yeah, just to add to
Beautiful.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, I think this is where the industry is hitting. Like this is really aligns like also with like the concept of AI ready data. This is what even at the company we push on this idea of having the data accessible in one place from multiple locations. But usually when it comes, we talk about the data and the digital twins, there is always this associated cybersecurity implications when we are talking about AI and data in the Permian. And I would love, as we are talking about the data and data storage and compliance, is the data security or cybersecurity something that's blocking the industry moving forward, or do you think we are past that? Like the industry has really moved past that?
Yeah, and I can take that for a sec. So I think with AI in general, it's a fear, right? Like if you're a user of AI in many different ways, right? Whether it's professionally, personally, whatnot, um, there's that fear of like, okay, well, what I'm saying is it just being taken, or is my proprietary data safe, right? And it might be a bit of a detractor when it comes to adoption of AI across the board. For an example, so like Enverus, we're SOC compliant, right? So we take that security into effect, right? And we are compliant there. And I think most data companies are as well. And so I think that's an important piece of information that should be expressed to maybe alleviate those fears, right? But I think as time goes on and AI is getting more and more complex, that security question gets brought up more. But I think we're doing a good job with that security across the
That,
board, right?
that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Niven, do you have like insights on the cybersecurity part of uh, in the market?
Yeah, I mean, like Alex said, I mean, everyone does SOC compliant work. I just think some of the issues, and it's not so much a Permian specific issue, but certainly in some of the international jurisdictions, is sending those tokens that are data. If you've got a residency issue, a lot of countries don't want those tokens going up to the cloud to get transformed into a response, right? And so there's a lot of discussion about, well, can we have on-prem generative AI, and it starts to become a bit more difficult. So I think a lot of customers that are comfortable with being on the cloud are going to be more generative AI friendly than ones that are still kind of stuck in the residency on-prem.
Yes, yes, that's definitely the debate of on-prem versus cloud is gonna always the benefits here versus the pros versus cons.
Yeah.
So that's an ongoing discussion. Okay,
Yeah.
let's like narrow the discussion a little bit about the Permian. What I would love from both of you, and we can continue with Niven first. I would like hear your best application happened from your perspective, either at SLB or general from the industry, that a specific application of the AI into the Permian, which really yielded actual dollar value benefit, right? And then I would love to generalize that. What's a typical, if I have somebody attending here is like, should I really invest in the AI working specifically in the Permian? And I can expect a specific like ROI or a specific payback period on my investment.
Yeah.
Would love really some insights from you or a specific piece of history, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I guess two that come to mind that are in different domains. One of them is in drilling operations. The other one is subsurface characterization.
Okay.
So just consider like drilling operations. We've got automated, basically auto driller type technology. So in real time, the technology can, given the constraints of that operation, but determine what is the optimal, weight and torque on bit for the formation you're in to get the greatest penetration, per rotation of the bit or whatever. And what that optimizes may not be the instantaneous ROP, but if you look at how the well actually drills, it's a lot smoother and stable. So consider, if you're going down into like the wolf camp and you hit a hard streak, instead of just pushing harder weight on bit and the bit starts jumping and there's torque spikes and things like that, you'll chew through bits and have to make a bit run. So the instantaneous drilling rate might be slower if you pull off bottom a little bit, but you don't have to do another bit trip. And so in terms of like total feet drilled per day, the performance can be quite a bit better, so 20-30% more, easily avoiding a bit run. So that's one example on the operation side, the drilling operation side. And then real quickly on like the induced seismicity side, I've been involved in a number of projects where using machine learning seismic interpretation, you get much higher fidelity interpretations of wrench faults and other structural components down in the Ellenberger, where induced seismicity is a problem. And then building, AI workflows on top of that to identify the likelihood of a seismic event given a certain injection strategy in the area. So those are two completely different domains, but both of them are enabled by automation and AI.
I see. So for the first example, I can see like the value in terms of money, right? If you save a run, that's a lot of money, and that's very clear, and it might be very immediate gain, but it's very foreseeable. How can you, for the second interpretation, like do you attribute that to a better discovery in general, or how can you convert this interpretation into money value? Again, this is for someone who's like, should I invest, or really the gains are too much in the future, I don't care, or it's not really worth it?
Well, the reason it's operational is because, there's so much flowback water and produced water in the Permian. Water disposal is a real problem. And, the strategy is you can either inject it shallow and then have to drill through it later, or inject it deeper where you don't have to deal with it. What happens is, though, if there's any seismicity, the Railroad Commission will curtail injection. And so given this, curtailed injection, water disposal becomes a real problem. It's like $5 a barrel. So if you have a subsurface working model for how much injection capacity would I have in my disposal unit before getting close to a seismic threshold, that could very well drive your operational strategy and your water disposal strategy.
Wow. That's very technical and very, like, I learned a lot in that. Like, thank you. That's very deep. I appreciate it. And this idea, I think this is the communication we would love to have, these real life examples where this is real money. It doesn't seem like real money immediately, but this is how in the long run or even the immediate run can be converted. Beautiful. Thank you, Niven. Alex, I'm excited to hear from you as well.
Yeah, and I'll go maybe a little less technical and go in the space of kind of the time is money, right? So AI being a time saver, and I think one of the first, I would say, inputs from a customer was the example on our side. This was probably a year and a half ago. We had, and if you watched, by the way, Santosh's presentation, it did kind of go over some of these things this morning, um, but it had to do with the fact that they had an app, right? So our first jump into AI, Gen AI had to do with what was trained in our intelligence vault, which was research, reports, which is a wealth of information, right? And so the the story here that we heard was it was someone in BD. It was a salesperson working in OFS, and they got into basically the lobby of a building, right, in Houston, in this case, and they needed to know more about the company they were going to go up to. So 40 floors up, whatever.
Okay.
And so before they got into the elevator, they asked the AI, our instant analyst, right? They said, I need to know about this particular company. I need to know what the activity is, and what are some things that I should talk about, right? And so as they went up the elevator, he got that answer. And by the time the elevator opened, he had the answer, right? And so he walked in and shook hands and was able to start talking about it. So in that case, it was literally at his fingertips. And he was able to get that information. As time progressed, we also now have things within the instant analysts looking at earnings transcripts, which for my own use cases with clients has been a lot of like, you know, these operators, whether they're midstream OFS operators, right? Um, they are reporting what has happened and what they're planning. And that is such a great wealth of information all in one spot. You can start asking questions like, a good one is like U-turns and horseshoe wells, right? What is the optimization, right, for that? That's an easy question you can put into the instant analyst, and it'll give you the information that they are actually reporting. So it's what they're telling their investors. It's part of these earning transcripts. So in this case, it's more of like, I could go in and look at the data and try and make those connections, or I can just ask the question. And so I would say that um, from my view, we're really good. I would say great efficiency maximizers and using Gen AI, right?
Perfect.
On my
Perfect.
side.
But for that story, I think the only thing that pops to mind, I know it's silly, but that he had coverage in the elevator. I need to fight in my building. We don't have. That's excellent. Actually, the idea that it's just you are connected to the internet, you can access the data from any location. This is something like data providers, like we do actually strive for that as well. Like if you are in Azure, you have the data in Azure. If you are in Google Cloud, anywhere you're like the customers are there, let's make the data available for them, which is beautiful. But this actually begs the question, and this gets me to my next point. How do you this accessibility and this capability, the AI capabilities, how is this changing like the competitive dynamics into the Permian, like major operators versus independent, right? Because it feels like with these data, with these AI tools, smaller operators are much more, or independent ones are much more empowered, I might say, right? Is this changing the competitive dynamics into the Permian or the industry in general, however you'd love to take it?
I mean, I'll just comment, and this is, probably Alex's product is at blame here, but it kind of enables the financialization of the sector, right? Because so many people can get an Enverus subscription. And Alex, I mean, you probably know a lot of your customers are probably in banking, right? And it's
number of them, yeah.
yeah, it's probably very easy for investment banker or whoever, or business development analyst to get in there and look at the bolt-on acreage and be like, well, how does this acreage over here on this side of the lease line produce? That's like your best estimate of what's going on next door, doing nothing technical. So I think what this technology has enabled people to do is level the playing field, in that you have to assume everyone at bare minimum is doing that style of analysis. You can't get away with going to the IR deck and pulling a type curve out, a sell side type curve, because you have the data available at your fingertips.
So you think this is really, it's a real enablement capability and tool for other players. Like this makes the market more open. This is what I'm hearing.
I think it's leveled the playing field.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Alex, you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I also think that you know, large operators are doing this as well, right? And so it empowers overall strategy, right? Where you can make these connections very quickly. And so whether you're a small private equity company or you're a big multinational, right? You still have the same thing and I think that's the leveling of the playing field, right? Everyone has the same access there. And I think as time goes on, it's also going to be the blending of the data too, right? So if you're a big company, you're going to have proprietary data and data that you already have created, and then blending that together as well. And I think that is also the future too. I think right now, yeah, if you're a few people working for a small operator or even a service company, right? I like to call them guy in a truck, right? Driving around somewhere between Pecos and Odessa, right? This empowers you too, and so you're really able to utilize this as well. I also think you know, as kind of looking into the future too, one of the things that we're working towards as well is being able to drop something in to our instant analysts and saying, using our data, right? Using those connections, what do you think, right? And so again, that could be anywhere from someone at a very large, you know, operator and they're a VP and they just want that answer real quick. Or it might be something that is super transformative for a small company, small private equity, where that might dictate their entire strategy. So yeah, it's at their fingertips. I think it is a level playing field. You know, that AI is accessible, right? So
Very good. You actually already answered my next question. So, but I will reiterate it just to make sure I got it. I was going to ask about service companies in the AI versus like operators' internal capabilities, right? Because operators and a lot of like the players in the field, they will have their own data and they might start building their own capabilities versus outsourcing using an external service company. I think your answer that I deduced will be this blend, the idea that they might have some tools empowered by either external data or external tools, which would get the ultimate vision. This is your vision, right? Niven, do you see this happening? Do you agree with that, or do you think there is one side that's actually more prominent than the other?
Well, I mean, it's all about that, because I mean, most operators focus on, you know, like a DSU development or a rock cube development, whatever you want to call it. And they're large capital projects, right? So they might do like one per year, and maybe their subsurface teams are watching 6 of those, and they know them in detail, and they're going to have, you know, hourly data, you know, tubing head pressure data, treatment pressure, all the subsurface and the seismic, and they're going to have that in great deal where they're operating. But that's still not a lot of broad data on a basin scale, right? So they have to find some way, you know, if there's like 400 rock cubes in Midland Basin and your company's only operating 20 of them, you need to have some way to extend to what you don't have. And so I think that's kind of whether you're, you know, a service company or an operator, but it's particularly the challenge of the operator.
I see. I see. That's beautiful. Shifting topics a little bit to data centers. We have huge like tech companies investing billions in data centers around the Permian Basin and focused really on the Permian. How do you think this infrastructure might affect drilling operations, or like what's happening? Is there like regions that will not be like accessible, or will this change how operators are drilling in the Permian? Like, do you think this is affecting anything, or you don't think this is not a big deal?
Well, the data centers are there to take advantage of the flared associated gas, right?
Hmm.
I mean, so they have basically like free energy for the time being, right? I think the netbacks in some places are close to zero, like Waha Hub or whatever. So I don't know if it's directly related to Permian operations, other than the gas is free.
Okay. Okay. But you don't think this is gonna have any direct impact on the like influence the drilling operations there? You
The
don't think?
automated driller technology I referenced earlier is run from an appliance that sits at the well site. So, in real time, it's not going up to the cloud for compute. All
Okay.
that real time inference is going on at the appliance at well site. So,
Okay.
in that case, not directly.
This automated operator, because this aligns with my next point about liability. This is a very good example, to be honest. Like I was going to have it abroad, but you just brought it up, and
Yeah,
it's spot on.
yeah.
How are companies in general handling liabilities when it comes to AIs making decisions, limit decisions? We always say like human in the loop and so on, but in reality, in practical, how is this going from like your hands on in the field eyes?
I mean, usually there's a safety check layer, right? I mean, so it's not like take like the ESP set point adjustment.
Hmm.
The algorithm tells you to adjust the variable speed drive, by a few hertz or something. Well, it's not just going to directly go to the controller and do that. So there's going to be a control layer in between there that will check, what's the capacity at my treatment plant? What is the pump state? Was it just turned on? Has it been gas cycling? Things like that. And once it meets the compliance checks, then it will send the order that has to get approved by the operator, that can then adjust the pump or something. So there's many operational controls in place. It's like these are just advisors, and what they do is reduce the time it takes to diagnose and recommend a solution to something that's suboptimal or whatever.
I see. So you would say it's still in this advising stage. There is no real autonomous. You hit the switch, the hit the switch, and you wait for the well to be like. How is this automation percentage? You would say, is it like just advising all of it, or there are some fully automated parts? And if there is, how's the liability looking
It's
for
usually
those?
it's well, I guess it's fully. I mean, okay, so there's advisory mode, and then there's full operation mode, which a
Okay.
human can intervene at any time.
Okay.
And usually, the only goes in full operation mode if there's already security checks in place. The rig state is right, and you're not making large adjustments.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So from a liability perspective, there is still always intervention door open, and you have more checks in place.
Yeah, not to use the annoying analogy, but it's like Tesla fully self-driving while fully supervised.
Okay.
Maybe you'll be in the middle of the lane a bit better. Maybe you'll parallel park a bit better or something like that. But humans liable, humans still, supervising, if you will.
Okay. So let's just stick with the analogy. I love this analogy. Like,
Yeah,
it's not perfect, but I'm stuck
yeah,
with it because we have like Waymo, like from Google, it's 100% automated in specific places, and there's the Tesla cyber taxi model or whatever, where you have
yeah,
a person in the passenger seat all the time.
sure.
In the oil field, we are with the Tesla model. Do I get this correct? Like we don't have a Waymo equivalent on any
No,
operation, right?
no.
Okay, that's good. That was my understanding. I just wanted to see if we have moved past that. I don't think we will from the liability perspective, but I was just like curious to revalidate that. Alex, in the data field, like, and I can definitely relate to that. Like when we provide data, we have to always like quantify this is estimated with I or not. How are you handling this, and how are you seeing this if it's any limitations that comes from a liability constraint when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I would say on the liability side, we so Santosh talked a little bit about our land. AI side, our incident analysts on the land side. And right at the bottom of that summary that you can create for any instrument, it says, hey, this is made by AI. Like, like this is great information. The AI or our incident analyst has been trained on basically talking that land side, right? And knowing what this instrument, the data that you'd want. But at the end of the day, Gen AI has hallucinations. It has things that you need to take note of. And ultimately it's a tool, right? Which, we as geologists, engineers, landmen, so on and so forth, we ultimately are the ones that are making the decision with that tool, right? And so the liability part, I think, is an important subject because, right, do you want to make a giant? So, for an example, on the land side, right, we could have conversations on a specific instrument, or have it help me run chain of title, right? Going back and understanding what's going on. It's such an important, efficient tool. Would I want it to run title for me? Probably not yet. To me, that's a liability thing, right? But I would love to use instant analysts and everything on every single one of those instruments so that I can get summaries, so that I can understand a deeper, because they can be 15 pages, right? So you can now go in and get those summaries and get those questions answered in different ways. So I think it's important to know that, on like our product side, it's a tool, right? And it's a wonderful tool. But when it comes to liability, do you want to, and especially on a technical side, right?
I see.
It's what we do, right? We're geologists and folks in technology, and we need to really also scrutinize that data too, right? It's a tool.
I've used the Enverus product. It's like you can go to the chat bot. You're like,
Yep.
go, pull these wells from, Lavaca County in the Eagleford. And it'll restate the question. It's transparent. You can see what it's doing. Then it shows what the SQL query is. Then it pulls the SQL query. These are all things you may have done on your own. They would have just taken more time, right? And so I think it's the transparency and the explainability. The liability is still yours. It's just this tool is, doing it faster for you.
You see,
Right.
I think the idea of like this, that like chat AI, like on the Plaid side, is exactly that's what you are explaining as well. It's the idea that we will give you everything that you need to make sure how we arrive to this conclusion. This is the data, like a RAG system per se. But what I want to sense from both of you, do you think the sentiment, like when this is AI, are people like, yeah, so is it a positive or negative? Where are we in when it comes to the oil and gas industry specifically, when we say, yeah, this is AI generated or this is assisted with AI, whatever like declaration we do, what's still the final sentiment that you feel?
It's like case specific. But it's like, we invent all kinds of tech. So like AI for seismic interpretation. The issue is, if it makes a mistake and the interpreter has to correct the mistake anyway, interpreter doesn't think that helps, right? So in that context, maybe it wasn't useful. Maybe in another context, you can pick a horizon on the entire survey, inline by cross line, and then take the average of the two, and it's close enough for regional mapping, and you wouldn't have done that before. So I think it just depends what job you're trying to do and the nature of the diligence. And it was like pulling title. Maybe, chain of title is almost right. It put most of the information in front of you. You still need to do the final stretch of diligence. So it's whatever your expectation is.
Very good. Very good.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears. Yeah. Thank you, Alex. No, please, if you have any final points before we move on.
Oh, no, to me, I agree with that. I think, as was stated, when we do these different prompts and we give answers, right? It rephrases the answer. It gives the SQL commands. To me, that's less than that. That's helping with that liability. Like, this is how we approached this
This,
answer, right? And these are the steps we took. And I think that gives people kind of the ease of use. And I think in the industry, and it was talked about on the last panel was excellent. The last panel was talking about, doing things we've always done it, right? So I feel like you need to expand your mind. You need some imagination and embrace the AI. Don't, again, probably not make every single decision across the board on AI. It's a tool, right? But I think that, expanding your mindset beyond we've always done it this way, because there are a lot of efficiencies. There are a lot of great things that come about with using AI in different applications. So
that's beautiful. Perfect. Okay. I'm gonna switch gears, but completely like different area, talking about the students, careers, and what we should learn. Like, I still relate to students. I finished my PhD like a few years back, so I'm still in that mood. And if I imagine myself in school now studying again petroleum engineering or even any energy related or geology or whatever, I feel I might be confused a little bit. I have a question here from Fatima I have about the future of engineer. Like, are they obliged to study AI in depth? Where do they stop? If there is like specific programming languages or it doesn't matter? Like, I would love to hear from both of you this message to maybe students or early career engineers. The both questions are specifically for petroleum engineers, but again, I think energy sector in general, geologists, geophysicists, and so on. What's your advice, seeing how the industry is moving and shifting? Let's continue with you, Alex, and then move to Niven.
yeah, yeah, and personally for me, I graduated as an undergrad in 2009, and so that was right at the beginning of shale revolution, right? And so I decided to go right into the industry. I was actually a mud logger, was my first job in oil and gas.
Wow.
And I was wide eyed. I was like, oh, wow. And so it was a great experience. And so, specifically as an engineer or a geologist, and I kind of said it in the last discussion I just had, where, kind of open your mind, be curious. If you learn here's kind of what I would not challenge you to do or not, but if you learn something in class and if you don't have the SaaS platforms or anything like that, put into ChatGPT 4 or whatever it may be, but ask it questions. Like, I learned about something in engineering or something in geology, right? Maybe it's B factors or in engineering, or maybe it's TOC and water saturation, petrophysics, or something like that. Put that into, like, learn more, because you can learn things from the book. You can also learn things out in the field. I think that's very, very important. You can also learn a lot from just being like, where, for an example, where does what are the B factors you would find in the Haynesville versus the Permian or something like that? Boy, is that broad, right? That's crazy. But you could ask, right? Challenge yourself and just be like, I want to ask these questions. And I think it'll lead to being able to ask better questions, right? And knowing the subjects just a little bit better. That's some advice.
I really love this phrasing, being able to ask better questions. Like, everybody, like in a phase, maybe a couple of years ago, we were all about prompt engineering. Like, this is a job, like how you ask the AI, how to be able to ask. I think you like beautifully phrased it. Ask better questions. The more questions you ask, you will get this skill of asking the right question and getting that. That's very well said. Thank you, Alex. Niven, would love to hear your take on this.
Yeah, I mean, I just assume that like people entering the workforce now are like digitally native, if you will. It's like I entered the industry in like 2005, and geophysicists were talking about, oh, I can use a 3D workstation, because for them that was a big deal in the 80s to have access to that. For me, it wasn't. I mean, I didn't know the other way of interpreting on a paper section. And so I think, like, kids coming into the industry now, they probably don't know how to do the Bourdais, pressure transient type curves where you overlay against the buildup and, get a type curve response. They don't know how to do that. they'll probably know how to use the software. And so I think now in like digital with AI, basic Python programming and coding isn't an entry barrier anymore. And I don't really think it's a standalone skill set. SLB trained up what's known as the domain data scientist to do kind of digital petroleum engineering type jobs. But I'm just going to assume that kids coming into the industry now are able to do these things, basic scripting, vibe coding, to perform things that might have been difficult to do in the past. And so it's almost like I assume, people can do that stuff. They have access to the Gen AI tools, and now they need more domain wisdom. And that's probably where they need to focus their efforts.
Beautiful. That's great. I'm just want to highlight to the audience, we are about to open the questions. So if you have any questions, please post them for our panelists to take them. We already had one question, but please feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A. We will be taking them as we are going. We have just few questions remaining here. I want to build on that we already discussed. I want to take it to the day-to-day job. How did the day-to-day job change? Is it a dramatic change with the AI? Like, has petroleum engineer work, and is it just the tools, or there is a dramatic or a major change that you see? Like, it's just, yeah, as you said, instead of using a paper, it's using a computer. It's nothing different, or there is like, I wouldn't say a seismic shift, but a big shift. How
I
do you
can
see
give
that?
an example we developed an AI water flooding solution. So the pattern flood management, as opposed to just like a 5-spot and allocating to the nearest producer injectors, it uses AI to find out, like a physics kind of informed AI to find out where are the allocations, and then where should I focus my injection to minimize water cycling. And so where I'm going with this is that it used to be there were surveillance engineers and operation engineers at this company. And a new position was created called the AI water flood modeler. And so, with the automated data pulls of what's going on in the field, the water flood modeler would then run the algorithm for the allocations and the optimizations, and then work with the operations engineer to change the set points on the injection wells. So in that case, it's new technology, and a new role was invented at the company to perform the new kind of work.
I see. That's pretty interesting. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's wonderful that it created a position, right?
I agree.
That's amazing. And I think being and kind of piggybacking off of what we were talking about before, just having the knowledge in AI. I think if you're an undergraduate, graduate, doesn't matter, right? You're in school and you want to go into the industry. I think having that knowledge, you've already got, I would say, almost a leg up, because for me, like, I've had to learn this, right? Like, it's not something I knew 10 years ago.
Adult education can be a beautiful thing.
Yes, exactly. And that's what we've had to do. Like, even internally at Enverus, we have focused on training the workforce on AI and why it's important, right? And it could be everything. It could be anything from, probably one of the best things about the job at Enverus, and perhaps, with S&P and Schlumberger and so on and so forth, that have AI applications and software and everything, is that you get to use it yourself, right? So you're making this for clients, right, to optimize what they're doing, but then you could also use it too. And I love doing that. I love going into our intelligence vault and learning, right? Just because we have access to it as well. And then even on just a daily thing, I do a lot of demos and presentations, and we have something that's attached that records it and even grades us, which is, maybe a little
Creepy.
wow. But it actually does help me a lot, right? And so, and I think it makes our presentations better too. And I can go in and say, oh, I said this. Why did I say that? Oh, hey, that was pretty good. So there's so many applications of the tool, and I like to just use what we give our clients too.
Yes.
It's kind of like, hey, we
I
made it and it's valuable.
Let's
I'm going to use it too. So
yes, yes, yes. I just want to maybe highlight like that. That's very well said. I just want to highlight there is a dangerous barrier, like especially when coding. Like I do a lot of coding, and then I had like a very wisdom saying is that don't allow the AI to generate something that you wouldn't have done. Like if you have an AI generate a code and you read the code and you don't understand it and then you commit it and move forward, that's very dangerous. The idea that if it's teaching you something, oh, I for the example you just gave Alex, yeah, like this is beautifully written, but I could have written like it's not like the words I don't understand, right? It's not writing in like Japanese or something. It's helping me amending and increasing my capabilities, but at the same time I can create that. It's very dangerous, especially for the young folks. It's like, yeah, the AI solved the homework for me, or the AI wrote this code for me, which I really don't understand at this point. I think this is a very red line that it could be easily crossed without realizing. So just taking this opportunity to highlight this danger, I think for all of us, to be honest, but especially maybe for like young professionals and young students.
Yeah, I mean, AI for coding, I mean, I'll personally never trust it beyond a block of code, especially in domain, because something simple like gridding data, the AI will mess up. I
Yes.
mean, you know how you want to grid the data, right? So you need to provide the overprint, but the AI will write the syntax for you and all that.
Exactly, exactly. I think this idea of like the orchestration, right? You'll become the orchestrator, and you lay the ground and you create a plan. Like the co-creation of a plan, actually in any field, the idea that you use the AI for brainstorming, creating a plan. I think this is one of the very wise uses, if I say myself, into the operation. I
Actually, one
held.
thing that, oh, go ahead, yeah.
No, I was gonna switch topics, so let's wrap up this topic
I
with
was
you.
just saying one thing that's interesting though is like the AI is really good at making simple web apps, like a Dash web app or something,
Yes.
right? So as opposed to I used to have all this expertise in like Spotfire scripting or whatever, Power BI, difficult to make a dashboard. You can just vibe code your way to
Yes.
like a Dash web app to show the data for you, right?
Yeah. That's exactly correct. Yeah. The idea is like the idea is infinity that this we are moving into an era what they call like personal apps. This is
Yeah.
very famous. Like you just code an app to use for only for you
Yep.
just today, but you vibe code in 10 minutes instead of going finding a SaaS on the web that does this for $20. You just vibe code it in 10 minutes. Yeah, this is a very specific small tool for very specific thing. That's one of the very beautiful
Yeah.
uses indeed. We have another question in the chat. Another question in the chat. Can artificial intelligence improve hydraulic fracturing or fracking operations by predicting the performance and distribution of fractures in the complex rock formations? Um, Vin, you wanna take that? It's
Yeah, I'll disclose that we don't have frac fleets anymore. We sold those off at SLB,
okay.
um, but we do a lot of like subsurface modeling type work, right? And so, like just one example of the old way of doing something would be matching treatment pressures to a fracture model and then simulating the reservoir production and so on. The ensemble, the AI way of doing it would be to generate multiple treatment pressure matches, which each generate a different realization of a fracture framework, and each of those can ensemble into a physics-based simulation. And now you've got like a very wide end member of potential solutions that are much better for history matching, uncertainty characterization, non-uniqueness, and things like that. So that would be kind of the new way of working that's kind of AI friendly.
Perfect. Thank you, Fatima. You wanna add Alex to that, or can jump? I
yeah.
have a specific question for you, so
I used to do completions. I was a geologist working for a frac company. And so I did frac modeling, right? So I did the
okay, okay.
geomechanics and
So
everything.
okay, I should
Whew,
have picked
yeah.
you then.
No. But my comment to that is that I wish I had AI
I see.
when I did that. It was well before, and so I've done pore pressure modeling in my past as well for an operator. I've done frac modeling, so geomechanics, all that, and it's interesting because it makes me think, what could I have used if it was actually in existence, right? So it's almost like that, I wish I had that. Like that would have made things way easier for me. I wouldn't have had to sit around and just mull at things, and, like over and over and over for a long, long time. I feel like it would have made things a lot quicker for me. So I wish I had that. So I guess is my only comment.
Beautiful answer. Thank you. Hopefully this answers your question, Fatima. Thank you. Please keep the questions coming. Until we have another question, we still have a few minutes here. The jargon in the industry is just increasing. Like we have a new term every day, but the buzzword these days is like agentic AI, right? So we had traditional AI and then generative AI, now agentic AI. Can you walk us through maybe like when we say agentic AI, what is it? How is it different? Do we mean a different thing, or is it basically the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, so I know the agentic like architectures are referring to, basically enabling users to make those plain text prompts sophisticated, right? And basically using chain of thought interactions and all that. And it's funny because like all of these new buzzwords and jargon, all this stuff comes with, you know, the knowledge behind it, and I feel like I'm constantly behind. No matter how much I read and try and keep up, I'm always trying to catch up, right?
So, some of them are like really just buzzwords, but yeah, I think I agree. So Niven, do you have like solved this mystery for us?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to go back several years before, like, the agentic makes sense in terms of a multi-agent workflow. And going back a few years, it was like GPT-3 and so on, was make a bigger LLM that can do everything. And then people have since realized that maybe a specialized LLM,
mixture of experts or something, yeah.
was better, right? And so a multi-agent system like a Shale Completion Advisor or something, it's a multi-agent system. Maybe it works through a conversational prompt or something, but the router will determine this query is about getting data and then so on. So you'll have an agent that will go do the SQL query and then retrieve that. And then the next agent thinks, oh, I might want to plot the data. So it knows the plotly library. It'll go plot across plot, and then you can type something else in. How does this compare to whatever? And then maybe you can have an optimization agent. How should somebody in the Fayetteville, given this well set, run a completion for, whatever the best production. So the point is each, there's a router, and then the router will orchestrate agents that have a very well-defined task through a doc string that defines the agent.
That's beautiful. If like what I get from you is that the idea of the agents is we multiply the power that we have, and these agents can also work in the background, so they execute tasks while we are not attending to it. The idea that go do that and come back to me with the results. This is what I'm hearing.
And they're modular. So if you have a multi-agent system, you can start with 3 agents, and then, add another agent to the conversation. So it's very easy to add and modify them, as opposed to, tuning or training a large language model to do everything when it won't.
I see. That's beautiful. Alrighty. Dr. Ahmed, do we have like the 15 minutes? I'm waiting for, like, we don't have questions from the audience. Do we have 15 minutes? Maybe we open a little bit deep topic. I think we have the time, right? Let's give it a second. If you don't have more questions, maybe we can wrap up at the top of the hour. This has been like very entertaining, very informative, and very educational. In these last few minutes, anything specific you would love to share, Alex and Niven? I have the third question from Fatima here before I give you to the mic. what are the most suitable machine learning models for our problems, like predicting well performance or detecting anomalies in pipeline? I think this ties back to the question we discussed, like the specifics, if there is a specific programming language or a specific machine learning model and so on. I'm not sure if that's like too technical and the answer depends, or you want to take a shot on
Yeah.
the
I'd have to say it depends
I
on
see.
my end. And you know, Santosh this morning was talking about basically, you know, running different models for things, right? And I think someone who is developing AI for what they want, they use many models. They go in and they use them, they evaluate them, right? Because every one of them does something maybe a little better than the other, right? Whether it's you're talking about machine learning versus Gen AI or whatever it may be. So his example was interesting. It was talking about our incident analyst and how it's still, I think it's GPT-4, and they tried 5, but it was actually it was like overthinking it, right? Which was interesting. But we actually went in and we tried it out, and we said actually we're going to stick with 4. And all the time we're trying to figure out what the best model is for the situation. So maybe a very indirect answer there for you, but
No, I think this is a very like beautiful answer in terms of searching. The idea that
Mhm.
when we talk about detecting anomalies or any fitting models or uh, any iterations over the data, we have to try different models. This concept that you are laying in the ground, I think it's very important. Even like I had actually multiple papers published around this idea, but I don't want to get technical. But the idea was that you'd always go search for the different solution, try different models with different parameters, do a grid search, and so on. So this answer of you have to search, like, because there is no correct answer, you always start from a specific place, but searching the domain and try different strategies will always be your approach. Even you want to add to that before jumping to another question?
I'll just comment. I did a similar to like anomaly basically equipment anomaly detection, which was time series data,
Yes.
right? There's a tendency to build a big model to try to solve the problem. But really, if you want to deploy this, you want the smallest model possible that you can deploy and get the quick inference times, and you're not
Yes.
wasting compute, right? And so just in that specific use case, it was time series data, 25 channels. I did like an auto encoder style model there, and I just kept reducing the
The
size
window.
of my model and got the layers of my auto encoder down to the smallest one that still detected anomaly, right? And so I think one thing you can think about is just how am I going to deploy this and what's the most effective inference time?
I see. That definitely the idea of the application, the practicality of deploying that, the inference time, the size. The problem I think with that, I might add to this myself because it drives me nuts. These VC-backed companies, they feel like make you feel like AI is for free, right? This Sora 2 just came out. It's like you generate thousands of like slob AI videos for free. We are literally burning hundreds of millions of dollars. So this is a problem, I think, is thank you for bringing this up. The idea that we have to think about the associated cost. It's not just burning VC's money. These are in the business to make money. The idea of factoring in the inference time, the cloud cost, and all the associated cost around that is very, very important. At some edge cases, we might go for a little bit lower accuracy, but like 10K or like 10x saved cost. We would, in some cases, this would make even more sense. So thank you for bringing this specific point into the spotlight, that it's a complete package. It's not just finding the perfect best model that cost $1,000 per run. It's about finding the solution that works practically, but also from a finance perspective. So thank you so much. Very good. One last question here. I'm not sure if it's last, but Abdul Wahab, do you foresee a future where AI takes over the petroleum engineer's job? Could AI make petroleum engineers even better? Like, is it gonna? I think that this question could again be generalized outside of petroleum engineering. This idea of AI taking over the job. I think you like it was very positive when you say like talked even about this added rule, like this AI modeler, the idea that even if AI ends up killing some jobs, it's creating or generating other jobs. But I would love for you to elaborate on that, please.
In different work, I mean, again, petroleum engineer style, like a petroleum engineer might, work with a geoscientist, build a static model, do history matching. History matching can be a very time consuming task and even, with a bad premise. And
Hmm.
the new way of doing a job like that would be the skills you need are actually programmatically generating cases, programmatically generating variables, proxy modeling, and then using optimization, right? So a petroleum engineer now is going to be expected to have those digital competencies that maybe you wouldn't have needed or been required 5, 10 years ago. So I just
See,
think it's shifting where the competency and how the work is being done.
beautiful. Alex, what's your take?
No, I agree. I think you, so yeah, it's always like, where are things going? Is going to take away all these oil and gas jobs? I think oil and gas as an industry, um, that you need people out there. It's the people actually doing, people doing the work in the office, out in the field, all of the above. It just makes you more efficient. It's a tool, right? And so, down the road, is it going to replace a geologist? Is it going to replace me? Right? I mean, I hope not. But I don't think it will, because again, it's making us more efficient and better at our jobs, I would say. And not just better at our jobs, that's probably the wrong way to say it. It's making us get better answers, right, to things. So if we have a project, we can get there faster. And to the point that was just made, you might need more competencies. You might need to know more about something I wish I did know, coding and things like that, like understanding how it works, right? And I remember the joke 10 years ago was, I think every geologist has to kind of also be a engineer in this unconventional reservoir world we live in. And you had geologists that were like, oh, no, I don't want to learn any of that. I don't want to geosteer. I don't want to do that. But they had to go with the times, right? They and the good geologists did, right? And so I think um, you know using AI as a tool and something that maximizes who you are in the business is important. And again, going back to the folks that are in university right now, I think that's something to take note of, right? Get proficient there too, because when you put that on your resume, I think that will really help moving forward, I think. So
Perfect, perfect. I think yeah, this is a very beautiful statement to close with. I think yeah, we don't have any questions. I think we can wrap it up here. Again, thank you so much, Alex, and even it has been a pleasure chatting with you. I learned a ton myself. I'm sure the audience here learned a lot. Your expertise are invaluable. Really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on other panels. Thank you so much.